Here we go, the final episode of the season. So, and Peter, and anybody else who joins us, just unmute yourself and ask questions as we get going. So, welcome to our final episode of Friday Art Lunch Bunch with Frank Korb. Today, our guest is Katie Stensberg out of Milwaukee. Welcome, Katie.
Hello. Thank you, Frank.
Sure, it's so great to have you here. I promised people some incredible cliffhangers as we approach the end of season 1.
I'll try to come up with some.
Excellent, very good. So Katie is here's your bio. It can be said that paintings are a reflection of how one internalizes the world. At times, certain sounds and sights create a feeling of sensory overload, making my world very loud and bright. These feelings are typically internalized until they are released in an alternative form of expression, abstract art with strong energy and emotion. My artistic vision is to create from imagination rather than realistic references. Pieces are known for bold strokes and strong use of color. With an influence in street art, my style has grown to include spray paint. This medium brings rawness and grit. Additional mediums include acrylics, oil sticks, and pastels. Titles of my work reflect humor and oddities that I find in everyday life, reminding us all to not take life so seriously. Oh, if only life didn't have to be taken so seriously right now. Oh my gosh. Katie is an emerging abstract artist from Wauwatosa, influenced by her mother and artist Anne Sheehan. Katie never had the intent of pursuing art. It wasn't until 5 years ago that Katie would pick up a brush for the first time in an art workshop in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, presented by well-known artist Pamela Anderson. Yay, Pamela! For the next several years, Katie occasionally painted in her garage, slowly fueling the fire inside and allowing for abstract expression to surface. In the spring of 2019, Katie decided to concentrate fully on becoming an artist and is currently being mentored by artist David Najib through the Milwaukee Artists Resource Network. Welcome, Katie. And I don't know if I got David's name right, but we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Yay to Pamela. She's my mentor. So next year or in 10 years when people are watching this, that'll make sense. So
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was a pretty good rundown of who I am. I'm not really that great about talking about my history or my artwork, so kind of bear with me, I guess. So I am a non-representational abstract artist. So what that means is that my artwork doesn't really represent anything when you first look at it. It's not an abstract sailboat or an abstract portrait in that regard. But yeah, so basically, I have my notes here because, like I said, I'm not that great at public speaking.
That's fine.
So I first kind of jotted down, like it was in my introduction. I never intended to become an artist. It's something that just kind of happened throughout my adulthood. My childhood was pretty typical. I would say, when I was reflecting back at this, my very best friend growing up, his mom was a pretty eccentric artist. She went to UWM, I believe it was in her late 30s or 40s, went back and got a degree in art. And I think somewhat that kind of always stuck with me, how she was able to do that after having kids and really started her career in her 30s or 40s. That was always very inspiring to me. I've always found a connection with that. And like I said, my mom in this photograph here, she's an artist herself. And she never really pushed art on me. It was just something that was always kind of around. I just love this photo. But anyways, she's always supported me and encouraged me once I started to become more involved with art. So I went to college because that was just kind of the thing to do. Got a degree in marketing, and I was in the advertising field for 14 years.
Wow.
It wasn't really ever fulfilling to me. I mean, I made great relationships, lifelong friends, learned a lot, certainly, but it wasn't really what I was meant to do. So in spring of 2019, I was let go of my job, and I decided, why not now? Why not try to become a full-time artist? And during those 14 years, I'll just go to the next. Oh, if you can go to the next slide. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I had screen control for a second. So I want to say this is about 7 years ago. I might be totally off. My mom caught wind of this artist, Pamela Anderson. She was going to have a one-day workshop up in Sheboygan at some guy named Frank Horace's, studio.
The world is so small.
Right? And it's just like, I didn't know who these people are. I've never done art before. It was never really a thing. But I tell you what, I went there and I was so inspired. It was so great. Like, I still have photos of that day up in my studio, just to remind me of the possibilities. So yeah, this is Pamela. What basically happened is that she did a demonstration, and there was about 6 people in the studio also, where we also did these large canvas paintings. I just loved it. I just totally loved it. And Pamela continues to be an inspiration, and Frank as well. And like you said, she's your mentor, and she does so much for the community. It's just awesome. And what's the next slide we got here? Oh yeah. So David Najib Kassir, he is my mentor currently through the Milwaukee Artist Resource Network. Here he is in his studio. You can see an example of his work on the left-hand side, upper left-hand corner. Really great guy. I encourage everyone to look at his art and really take it in. He has been teaching me a lot about art because I'm not trained. I don't have a degree in art. So he really has taught me a lot. And all these little squares, oh my gosh. So I like to work like really big. And so he's like, you got to work really small. So these are all paper pieces that I worked on. And so he was giving me a critique on those. So
is each one of those a separate painting unto itself? Or did you go the Jackson Pollock route and do one painting and divide it into many pieces?
So David asked me to do like separate individual pieces, and some of them have that going on, but then others don't. Yeah. So it's kind of a mixture. But that was really hard for me. My God, that was hard.
Yeah. So yeah, this was, it's very similar to, and prior to the live recording of this, we were talking, and one of the last assignments I gave to one of my painting classes was to do a painting a day.
Yeah.
Just something small. And it was really hard. It was very hard for the kids who were there to do that. And it was for them, and maybe it's similar, but it was a couple of them who didn't really follow through, was like, well, I just didn't have the inspiration to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, you don't need the inspiration. You just need to push that paint around.
Exactly.
So, these are great.
Yeah. So David has taught me a lot about the language of art, how colors work with one another, how they speak with one another, how they interact in general. So that's really opened up my eyes. I never used to really mix paints before. It was more about the process of putting it down and the shapes and how they play with one another. And so he's really opened up my eyes to the color theory and that sort of thing. And also mark making, how the marks speak to each other, how fast you put down the paint, how that speaks to a small mark right next to it. Whether or not it creates friction. It's really opened up my eyes a lot.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Taking notes as you're talking.
So sometimes I have to remind myself to don't think. It's my work is more reactionary. I don't sketch things out and then, okay, I want my painting to look like this. It all begins with just getting the paint on the canvas and then moving from there. What areas do I want to focus on? What colors do I want to use? So I try not to think about it too much. Just have it be more of a reaction.
Would you say that your work, as you continue to react, you tend to work in rework sections? Like if you were to look at a cross-section layer of your paint, are there layers underneath, or do you tend to find that the layers you put down at first, like you go with that and that's what we end up seeing on the surface?
It depends. A lot of my paintings there's 3 paintings underneath it. It's, right. Yeah, I just work it until the whole thing comes together. So a lot of times there'll be, like you said, a small section in the corner that doesn't work, and I'll try to fix it, and the whole painting changes because you're just trying to make the whole thing work, and sometimes you just have to start over. And that's why I like acrylic so much, is that it dries fast and you can do that. So most of this is acrylic. I tried oil, and I work with oil sticks.
Yep.
Those are super fun, but they take forever to dry. I just can't.
Talking about oil sticks, I found, and I purchased mine through NASCO. And the neat thing about NASCO is it's a art supply company, but it's also a farming supply company. And so the ones I use are not art sticks, they're cattle markers.
Yeah.
And they dry, I mean, it takes a night to dry, but they're dry the next day.
Interesting.
Yeah, so next time I see you, I'll have to get a hold of some cattle markers and give them to you, because
I wrote that down.
They're big. They're really a big. Hold on a second.
they're probably I would say almost the thickness of a banana.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
They're really big.
Yeah, they're great.
They're used for marking just on the outside of the hide of a cow, literally. Yeah. And because they're oil-based, they're waterproof.
83 cents.
And they're bright colors.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, oil sticks are not cheap.
No. So we're going to have to get some of these in your hands, and they are wonderful. So
awesome.
Cool.
Do you have to buy them in quantities of 100?
You probably could, yeah. The colors, like I say, though, they're kind of limited, but they are wonderful, and they blend beautifully.
Really?
All you need is your red, yellow, blue, and you've got everything. So,
nice.
Yeah, they're great. They're really wonderful.
Very, very cool.
Great. Okay.
So this is an example of how I may start out a piece. Just like I said, just get it down and see what happens.
Next piece. Okay, I got that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is another example of a lot of my work is just experimentation, see what works. This was a piece of rope that I just was like kind of flinging on the canvas just to see what works. This is an example of a painting where I liked the look of it, but it just never stayed. So it was kind of a frustrating piece because it's like, man, I really like that, but it just didn't last. I don't know.
Yeah. What's interesting to hear is I am so much of a planner. My degree is in graphic design and teaching in art education, and my paintings have, as a fine artist, my paintings have always been very, very planned out. Even the abstract what feels like gestural marks are all in sketchbooks.
Okay.
So it's wonderful to hear this spontaneity coming from you. And I'm struggling with that. My backgrounds have become more spontaneous. But
Yeah.
boy, when it comes to that foreground stuff, it's so well planned out. These are
Yeah.
wonderful.
So that's funny. So I did a couple pieces, and I sent them to David, who is my mentor. He's like, "Oh, I like that. Now create that over again." And I failed. I got a total F in that. Like, I tried, and it looked somewhat similar, but oh my God, failed.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep,
that's hard.
I'm gonna keep working on spontaneity. I'm starting to read stuff into this painting too. So this might be one thing to rework.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. My artwork is very messy.
Yeah.
Like my studio, that was, I mean, before COVID and all that, it was in my mom's basement, and we called it Studio B for basement. And it, I mean, I have to have plastic on the walls and on, canvases, I mean, tarps all over, because it just gets insane. So
this is you after a good day working.
Yeah. So I guess what I have up here next are just pieces of work. This is one of my first, and my mom has it. And it's really just working with the gestures and how things, I don't know, play with one another. I just like the colors and how this one really turned out.
What kind of tools do you use to do your mark making? Obviously, that's way too big of marks to be a paintbrush.
Yeah, so this piece, I can't really remember exactly. I want to say it's maybe like a 20 by 20, something like that. So I use large scrapers. This piece had taping on it to get the sharp edges of the layers. It had trowels and what do they call it with when you mud something underneath tiles and has the notches in the scraper?
I think that's a trowel.
Trowel.
That's just a setting trowel.
Yeah. So I use that. Boy, anything sharp that creates a mark, really. I mean, it all depends what's really close by in my hand.
Not having a whole lot of understanding of color, I think you really, even this being one of your early pieces, truly understand color. I mean, these are wonderful combination.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a little bit too vibrant and amazing to be total beginner's luck. For sure. Right?
Yeah.
So this one was an example of early on. It was one of, gosh, it was a while ago. But so this piece is 4 feet by 4 feet, and it's 4 inches deep. And I really want to keep things simple. And those white marks are actually from a tennis ball that had paint on it. And I just threw it at the board because it wasn't canvas, so it could like fly right back at me. It's also one of my first attempts at working with spray paint. So that black is spray paint. And ironically, when I was working in my like quote unquote professional job, the owner of the business collected art, and she received a crate with artwork in it. And she had it by the door to throw away this, crate. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, one day I'm going to make a piece of artwork on that. And sure enough, I did. And I just love how it turned out. It's raw. So like, I like how the spray paint is kind of like a raw medium, but like the edges, as you might be able to make out, like it splits in some parts. It's just, I like it a lot. It's cool.
Oh, wrong way.
Wrong way.
There we go.
Oh, okay. So this is kind of an example of my earlier works. They're really bold colors. There's really no mixing to make these colors. They're pretty much straight out of the tube. Again, I'm experimenting with mark making. There might be too much mark making in this one. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just getting down, trying to get a painting depth, and just playing around with things. This one's called Street Mustard, and it's a larger one. It might be 30 by, let me see. Yeah, it's a 30 by 40. So again, I just like to go big. It's just easier with the mark. You know, you can get your whole arm into it.
Right.
You can move it around. So yeah.
And in the learning stages, I think that scale is a very hard thing to offer. As an educator, giving a space to work that's 30 inches by, you know, greater than 2
Yeah.
feet, there's so many limitations. You know, the size of the space we're working in when you've got a room full of people, the supplies cost so much.
Right.
You know, so it's great that you're able to do that and experiment with it. And I see that's one of the challenges students have sometimes, is that it's hard to get that kind of size.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. There's some like really deep gouges in this. Is this on canvas?
Yeah. So that might be either the lip of the paint.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's a gouge or like the lip of the paint kind of.
There's some really great marks in these pieces.
Yeah.
And layering too is wonderful.
Thank you.
Another dumb luck right off the bat, I guess, huh? Definitely.
So, moving, like this one is a little bit, later. I'm trying to keep things more simple. Like, it's kind of like there's an extreme. It's like, it's either there's a lot going on or there's very minimalist. So this one, I discovered the oil sticks. So that blue is an oil stick.
I was going to say, that's what it looked like.
Yeah. And the red is the oil pastel more.
Okay.
So it's like a thinner. But yeah, so I discovered that, and I was just like, oh yeah, I dig this for sure. It's just a smoother line. And I was with this one, I was playing more around with the composition, like making things balanced. That's called Pack Woman, and that's a 24 by 36.
Okay. Your titles are great.
So this is another example of trying to keep things simple. It is literally 3 strokes, and that's what I called it, 3 strokes. So the blue went down first, and then the red, and it just needed a little something extra. So I used, now I'm starting to like push down on the brush more and holding it more like a joystick and just moving it around the canvas. So that's where that came from in the upper left.
It feels as though I see the drip of the red going to the left. So
I love drips, but sometimes more than one drip is just too drippy.
This
too
is
drippy for me.
Simplification is something I really, as an artist, I struggle with.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Putting one mark down, and I don't have a problem with putting a mark down and leaving it alone. I have a problem with putting a mark down and not putting a dozen more over the top of it.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful to see that simplification.
So are we seeing, I'm sorry, on that piece just before, are we seeing like translucency in the red paint? Are we seeing the blue sweeps through it? I was just noticing the variation in the red tones, and at first blush, not knowing the scale of this at all or what material it was on, it almost looked as if you'd put down opaque red paint and then like rinsed it through with water, or it looks tie-dyed somehow. But now I can kind of sort of see the sweep of the blue, the pathway of the blue through it. Is that a translucency, a mixing, or?
So the blue was put down.
That?
I sprayed the canvas with water of a sprayer. And then I used a large scraper. I put the paint on the scraper and I scraped the circle for the blue. And then the red was put on shortly thereafter. So you can kind of see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's where the scrape begins. And it's a very strong color. But as I move the scraper around, there's less paint on it. So water is popping through still from the blue part. And that's where that comes through. Yeah, that's why then you get that red drip. But I never went over it twice. That's just how it ended up. And it was really, like Frank said, sometimes it's just so hard not to keep putting paint on. And so I just had to, that's one thing I'm learning now, is just to put the painting down and come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, that's, ugh.
Great pieces.
This one I made not too long ago.
I remember seeing this early. I remember when you posted this piece.
Yeah, so this one's called Not Your Fault Line. It's a 30 by 24. So it's really playing with taking away from the painting rather than adding on. Well, I am adding on to this painting. I don't know, it's taking away from the vision of it, I guess you could say. I mean, underneath you can see that there is some spray paint and lots of mark making, that sort of thing. But it was just so busy for me that I started to take away all the busy parts by painting this odd yellow color over it. And then it just didn't seem finished for me. So then I started to kind of block it off with these oil pastels, and I just really like how it turned out. That one is
great texture.
How big is that one? Oh yeah, 30 by 24. And this is all on canvas still. This one is Gotta Get Up to Get Down. I made it. I was drinking Gotta Get Up to Get Down coffee beer out of Memphis. I have family in Memphis, and I got back from a trip there visiting with them. And this one, I was really playing around with dry time, like how, how long you wait to put on the next layers really determines the effect of it. So as you can see, I kind of let the spray paint dries really fast. So I kind of had to do this somewhat quickly. So in the top left, you can see that the spray paint isn't totally dry and it just kind of smears through. Yeah, so this one was all about dry time. And like even the mark making up in the upper right, that was, just hitting it at the right time so it spreads. Or it cuts through the color a little bit.
Oh, that's great.
And in the bottom right, just working on giving your eye a place to rest.
When you paint, do you find yourself going to your studio like nowadays, who knows?
Right.
But was it like a regular time period where it was from 8 in the morning till noon, or?
Not at all. It was all various times of the day. In different moods. Sometimes I'll be listening to French music by Edith Piaf, and sometimes I'll be listening to, hip hop by Tribe Called Quest. So it's all over the board, but listening to music really helps me get in the mood and get going. So a lot of it is affected by that.
That's great. Great works. What is this?
So David, my mentor, for a final project, I have these 6x6 squares, and this is just a stack of some of them. I don't know how many I have now. It might be like 70 of these squares that are all different pieces, and somehow we're going to put them into some big final piece. We're still working out the kinks, but and how that's going to look. But
yeah. Are you
sorry, anyone for hearing this, but we're not done yet.
Is this going to be for the exhibition when that happens?
Yeah. So it's just an example of, trying to push yourself to do things that you normally wouldn't do. If you're getting too comfortable with your
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
Change it up. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, this image is so striking. Like, I like this, like as a piece, and I was going to ask if this was just literally sort of like a candid shot, so to speak, or if this is intentionally going to be featured as well. You know, the stacked edges of things. It reminds me of the faux mineral cordite, if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't. No.
I guess at the Ford Motor Company factory in Michigan, in Detroit, after years and years and years of auto chassis being sprayed with different colors, the dripped paint that fell through sort of congealed and conglomerated layer after layer after layer.
Yeah.
And they salvaged these enamel chunks of paint,
Oh,
with like
that's
all of
cool.
these layers of paint on them, and they're setting them in jewelry.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, this was just on Instagram. A lot of times I just like to post pictures of the process, because the process is just, I mean, that's another thing I'm learning. It's all about the process,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I did a piece for WMSC, the little wood block things that they're going to have for their fundraiser. My piece was this long stick that I used to like do scrapes along paintings sometimes. Well, I cut that up into small little squares and reassembled them to make a square. And so it's, so that in itself is a painting now, or a sculpture, I guess you would say. Yeah. So
I could absolutely.
I really hope WMSC, I hope that happens. I heard end of July, but
I'll have to look into that myself. But everything for artists is too little too late, but definitely look into that. You know, looking at the idea of sculpture, I know that other artists have taken their paintings and taken them to that sculptural level. So this could be a whole new direction that you head in.
Yeah, sculpture to me is really taking the painting off of the canvas, off of the whatever it is, and making it, and just kind of like lifting it up, I don't know, into a different visual form. It's cool. I don't see myself getting into sculpture right now, but who knows? Yeah.
Well, you didn't, when you started working, you didn't expect yourself to be a painter either. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Who knows? So David, my mentor, is, you know, pre-COVID, VAR Gallery in Walker's Point, they had this thing called Drink and Draw. It was every other Tuesday. It was like $1, and they had live models. Like I said, not formally trained in art, so he challenged me to do sketches, you know, attend these and do sketches. So this is just an example of pushing yourself, and you know, I'm sure this has affected my work in some way. I'm not sure, but I thought it was just important to include, because you just need to do that.
Yeah. Well, observation for me as a trained artist, observation is what I really encourage, and then working paintings as observational, doing landscapes and whatnot that are based on looking. It does influence what we do as abstract artists as well, because you know, even for me, even if it's just I need to look more carefully at my own work.
Right, that's true. Yeah,
that's something there. So
yeah, like look intensely as you are at, you know, this figure as you do your own artwork. That's a really good point.
Great.
You must be a teacher, Frank.
Not anymore. School's out.
Not anymore. Not today. So this is one of my later pieces as well. It's called Zamboni. It was finished when we had the ice storms this last winter. It is, I don't know. It's just an example of a fun piece. I think I just loved the whole process of it. I don't know what to say about it.
It's okay. Just your use of color is really wonderful. And I just love how you're bringing in mark making with big, bold gestural marks with things like trowels and scrapers. But then you've got that gestural spray paint that's brought into it. And it's great to see that contrast of marks, big and almost geometric with the hard edge, and then this fluid line that could have been drawn with a sparkler on the 4th of July kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And the texture that you're bringing as well, like it looks to me as if like with the trowel and you're scraping through, you're building your own texture that you're then using to sort of create this more subtle layering of color and sort of peeking through. And I'm assuming you're starting with essentially flat panels or flat paper. You're not
this is canvas.
starting with textured canvas.
This one is 24 by 48, so it's quite long. It's a bigger piece for sure. But yeah, you're right. So there's lots of layers of paint. I mean, kind of maybe like around 11 o'clock, you can kind of see an example of how I scraped with that darker violet color, how that orange pops through along that
yeah,
ridge.
that's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
That and like down at 4 o'clock,
yeah.
so there's a sweep through there too.
Right.
And I've seen some people actually will use the really cheap sort of construction press board to paint on, because when it gets waterlogged, the pieces sort of lift up and then they create the texture underneath.
Oh, interesting.
You're building your own. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever put additives into your paint, sand or?
No, the only thing I've really put in is fluid aid, and that it waters it down basically. I like that. I like to use that for sure.
Wonderful. Very
so this one is a little bit smaller. It's called Finding Fitch. It's 20 by 20. This one, I'm trying to focus more on mark making and trying to connect the different shapes via the marks, rather than connecting them through like big gestural movements with the brush. I try to do it more finely with the mark making. So what else we have? So there was a kind of a gap in my work. Once COVID hit, I really struggled to work. I had to move my studio from my mom's basement to my home in the basement here in Wauwatosa, and it was just kind of dark and damp, and I just didn't like it. And so then I moved it up into my small kitchen, which has been better, but it's still hard. But anyways, this is an example. This one's 12 by 12, which is a little bit smaller. I'm really playing around with mixing colors and using more earth tones. For me, this is more considered earth tony. David, my mentor, he's like, you have to get some more toned down paints. So he gave me like a list of like different paint colors for me to use. And so this is an example of that kind of changing direction.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that shift. You're not the first person I've talked to who's had such a dramatic, been so influenced by COVID-19 coming in, but a lot of studios have moved around.
Oh God, yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm not out of work, thankfully, but it's a minor setback, and it's okay, but it's just different. That's all,
Yeah, the toning down of the paints is wonderful to see. I mean, everything in the earlier pieces was so vibrant and like, in our faces, and mixing in either the white to your colors or black to your colors. Black is such an intense color to mix with, but even using the idea of complements. So, and I don't know if David's talked to you about this, but color theory, here we come. If you've got your color wheel, because we all have our color wheels at arm's reach, using the colors that are across from one another to help tone the colors down is very helpful. So, wonderful.
Yeah. So that was another thing David said. He's like, do you have a color wheel? I'm like, no. He's like, go get one. They're $1. So yeah, just like that. So I went, and so that I'm using that to help mix colors. That's a good tool for me. But
it's funny.
You just got to experiment, and really, that for me, that's the best way to do it. Is just experiment. If you're like, wow, I really like how that color turned out, jot it down in a notebook somewhere.
I love the blues in the upper left hand, but I'm really intrigued by this like bluish green gray down here. and these wonderful yellows. And the other thing about this piece is just seeing these little marks of oil pastel mixed into these scrapings of paint.
Yeah.
It's hard to teach that stuff. It's hard to get kids and, you know, to do exactly what you're doing and just throw all of their
emotions
into it. Yeah. People
Kids
are
over
so
the age
worried
of 4.
about it.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, this picture is a little blurry, but I did not tone this one down, but it's another post-COVID one. Let's see here. This one is 30 by 30. This one is all mixed colors. Again, just trying to make the colors work with one another and then have the shapes play with one another. Yeah, so it's one of my later pieces.
Good stuff.
This one, I was trying to do some spray paint. So I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I work with a small agency. There's just 3 of us called Wallpapered City, and we help coordinate and facilitate street art, mural art projects. And I'm not a street artist myself. I can't do anything with spray paint, but I'm always just intrigued by the talents that these people have. They're just amazing. So I have some spray cans myself. There's a certain lines called Montana. They have really awesome colors, just unbelievable. But anyways, I tried to make like these fish with a stencil. So in the upper left, you can kind of see what is, you know, a goldfish type shape. So it really didn't turn out. And so then that was kind of the base of the painting. And I just kind of moved from there. But it's all about experimenting, and then you get these different things happening.
So many ideas popping into my head here. I see like a knee coming out in the lower right-hand corner. It's like this Willem de Kooning inspired figure hiding behind a Basquiat crown, and
that's what I like about non-representational abstract art. It makes the viewer look at it, and they create their own connection with the piece that nobody else can create. And that's why my names, I really don't like to suggest anything. And also post-COVID and with the protests and everything that are going on, weird thing, I haven't been able to name my paintings really. It's a very weird thing. I don't know. So this one doesn't have a name. I just refer to it as Goldfish, but doesn't have a name.
Yeah, then they become untitled, and that's okay too.
Yeah, right? That's just what it is, I guess.
Date them.
Wow. The transition has just been fantastic to see from the early pieces to what your current pieces are.
Yeah, it's certainly transforming. This one is larger. It's 30 by 30. So when COVID hit, my girlfriend and I, we decided to paint our living room and family room. And it was just the weirdest thing. So I painted this afterwards, and it really didn't occur to me until this was done. I'm like, oh my God, that cream is the exact same cream that we used. I mean, the same color that we used. And it's just bizarre how things work. And then that brown it's like a camel color. You know, we're getting a piece of furniture that's camel color. So like all these things are just like, and we have blue chairs. It's really super weird how I don't notice things until after they're done. And like, these are all colors that were mixed. So it's kind of, I don't know.
You're sort of channeling your living room design.
Yeah, it's super trippy. So yeah.
Your sample board.
So yeah, that was kind of, I think that's my latest finished piece.
Oh, that is.
But yeah.
It's great. It's wonderful. Well, Katie, thank you so much. For those of you who stuck around to the end of this, you can visit Katie at katiestensberg.com. And that's it. That's the end of season 1 of Friday Art Lunch Bunch. Thank you all for joining us. This has been great. This will be where this video gets placed in the slideshow. You can visit all of these at artwithkorb.com. So when you're done watching the new Space Force on Netflix, you're done binging that, you can come back here and binge our shows. Katie and all of my guests, it's been fabulous. Thank you so much. For those of you who've joined us, Peter, thanks for coming today. And
hey, enjoyed it.
yeah, and who knows what's coming next season? Starting September something, we hope. So thank you everybody for joining. Katie, once again,
Thank you.
Thank you. And
thank you, Katie.
care.
Good to meet you.
Thank you. Nice
All
to meet
right.
you, Peter.
Thank you, Frank.
Have a good summer, guys.
Bye-bye.
You too.